Hello and welcome to this week's video on My Hero Academia Vigilantes. This week I'm reviewing the episode Mix, and we kick off this review as we always do with these reviews by talking about the positives and the headline positives. I thought this episode had some really great humour all the way through it. It set us up for some nice small scale villainy and a potentially creepy and unpleasant villain towards the end of it. So, after our heroes successfully managed to defeat the baddie last week, Corolla does what any self-respecting young man about his age would do, and he decides to go to the pub. Which not only reminds me of the time when I was around that age and I'd go to the pub after doing something, you know, kind of epic and great and awesome and just about any moment within my life, really. It also reminds me of the time that I almost got the chance to interview Bowling for Soup, but I didn't. And I also bought tickets to see them, and I accidentally left them in my dad's car and didn't find them for a good 3 months after the fact. Yeah, but anyway, actually, to talk about the episode itself, I often talk about the tone and the humour of this series, as more often than not, I think that he manages to strike a great balance between managing to balance the more serious moments with the more moments of levity, and I think that the humour within this series isn't overpowering in the way that it can sometimes be, regrettably speaking, when it comes to the main series, and once again, this week is no different, though I will admit that there is a tone and a flavour here of this feeling like we're getting into something of a palate cleanser storyline, which really feels weird to me because it doesn't feel as though we've had anything thus far that's been terribly dramatic or troubling that would warrant that. It feels as though for the past volume and a half, almost 2 volumes, that we've been in a constant holding pattern of something slightly more dark, but only slightly, and then getting into something that's very light and boisterous and bouncy, which is a whole series of events I'll probably talk about when we come to the volume review in a few weeks' time, but, you know, for the here and now, it is good, it is neat. Crawler is off to the pub with the guys from Featherhat, not the lead singer because he's still in love with the choreographer, which once again is played for laughs in a little panel bit, which is fun, it's cute, it's hilarious, it works, it's a great little subversion of that kind of trope when it comes to animation. Great, good, I like it, it's good. In any other scenario, in any other series, this would be the moment that's taken to develop and explore the characters within this band, give us a chance to get to know them, understand them more, what makes them tick, what kind of cool superpowers that they may or may not have, and here we don't get that, and to be honest with you, I'm perfectly fine with that. They're not the focus of events here. The main thrust of all of this is this scheme to distribute more trigger, which, you know, it's something that we'll discuss in greater detail just shortly. But all of this gives us a great insight into Crawler's character and gives us time to actually spend with him to get a better idea as who he is, which is something that we've been lacking for the past few volumes or so. We're actually getting some proper time to just sit down and just see more about who he is as a person, as it feels as though, as I've mentioned in previous reviews on this series, that he's felt increasingly like a side character within his own story to a greater extent than it feels that when you get that similar kind of feeling with the main series with Midoriya. But here we get a good chance to see what kind of a odd and wistful soul that he really is. This is exemplified by the bit where he's debating which of his hoodies he's going to put on. But of course, these are the hoodies that he also uses for crime fighting, and he's going to wear them for his trip to the pub, which, as Popstep points out, would probably out him as being a vigilante, but Crawler finds it romantic, like in a, oh, I guess that means we'll never truly be in love, me and whoever end up chatting up at the bar. Oh, we'll just be 2 star-crossed lovers with a forbidden love. Look, there's better ways in impressing a woman than incriminating yourself. You know, get to know her, let us see more about your personality, and, oh, yeah. Well, there's also your physique, you could show off your physique and how, oh, yeah, there's also that as well. But still, the main thrust of this episode, from the hero's perspective, is that the police have figured out that this criminal organisation that's distributing Trigger has moved on, seemingly, from trying to distribute it via crab-based snacks to now distributing it via these little drinking sessions in the pub. They've realised that the most recent victims are young men that recently went out for drinks with some young women, and that's how the most recent villains have been created, which, to be blunt, doesn't exactly narrow things down. I mean, all these victims, these recent victims, seem to be around university age who are meeting up and having drinks, which, again, doesn't really narrow things down. Now, I understand that this is a culture thing, and on this wet little rock that I currently find myself imprisoned, we have a very different relationship with alcohol than most other nations, but even still, how the hell does any of this narrow this down? Like, they're looking for a bunch of students, university students, who are going out and having drinks together. Like, most university courses will have a mix of men and women, and they'll often go for drinks together after a hard day, or a busy day, or indeed any day of the week. Or maybe it'll be a mix of friend circles, roommates, just going out to do some socialising, or going out with the hope of having a good shag. Just this whole series of events just feels like they're just trying to find a needle in a haystack with all of this. And this series takes place in Tokyo and not in one of the Star Wars named places that the main series takes place in. And whilst I don't know much about Tokyo, I think it's fair to say it probably has a fairly large student population, so good luck. I mean, if this was taking place in the UK, they'd just be totally screwed. They never narrow that down. Just the sheer drinking culture that we have over here. Right, we're looking for a bunch of students, a mix of boys and girls, and they're going out drinking together. Yeah, that's like pretty much every social group in the UK, the university age, more or less. So yeah, good luck with that. Though I would say that if anything like this was happening in the UK, the best place to look would be at the local Wetherspoons. Because given the sheer number of mutants that I see walking in and out of there, there's gotta be some kind of weird, suspicious stuff going on. Or at least failing that, the Wetherspoons definitely has a flavour of Innsmouth about it, but that's a whole of a rant for all of a time. But, in order for this story to, happen, it seems to be that our heroes have miraculously managed to find the right exact group at the right exact moment. I'm not going to beef about that too much, because at the end of the day, all this would have turned out into is just Crawler have a few drinks for the pub and do some mild socialising, and whilst I probably would have got a kick out of that if nothing else for the sake of nostalgia, I understand that a story needs to happen here, and needs to be stakes, and needs to be a little more drama, so this ends up leading to Midnight being involved in all of this, because she's been sent to go undercover to try and figure out what the hell is going on here, with Popstep also being pressed into service all of this, because, it feels as though it's time to have yet more scenes where Crawler is totally oblivious to her feelings towards him. To be fair, though, it's not as though he knows that she's there, because she, too, is disguised. Now, just a slight thing, and this is a me thing, this is a dyslexia thing, but when Popstep gets tapped on the shoulder by Midnight, she turns around and says, "Ah, who are you?" But because of the way that it's written, and because of my dyslexia, I read it as, "Ah! Ho!" And then, no, it's me, Midnight. And I'm just thinking, yeah, I was right the first time. Like, I'd like to say that these two characters have an interesting dynamic together, Popstep and Midnight, but they don't, quite frankly. I mean, they could have set something more up here, but they really don't. Popstep spends most of her time actively trying to not drink, and Midnight spends most of her time trying to get totally schlossed and trying to get everyone else at this little meeting, this little social event, totally wankered. So it's not as though we're getting much of an interesting opportunity for either one of them to show their truer self, or for Midnight to act as a mentor figure towards Popstep. They're just both there trying to drink or not drink respectively. There is some light ribbing of Eraserhead when he's at the recycle hopper plant again, because that's where he seems to live now, and discussing the whole matter of how these little social groups, which, again, I don't know, I guess mixers really are a thing in Japan and America, or whatever. But certainly in the UK it definitely isn't, for whatever. But they're all talking about, well, should we send Eraserhead to go and investigate this? And he just says, yeah, no, I don't, because I don't like socialising. And there's like, there, at last, a character that I can identify with. He doesn't sleep too well, he doesn't like people, and he just reluctantly goes into things because he has to. I can relate to that. Yeah, Eraserhead, you'll never find him in the kitchen at parties. Now, it's all fun and games, all of this. We get some light banter, we get some fun little moments throughout the episode. Like I say, this episode has a great humour and a great flavour to it, and a great warmth to it that I really do like, and it extends beyond just nostalgia from back when I was around this age myself. But, you know, it's all fun and games until it starts to get pretty bloody creepy, because we have the weird pudding bowl haircut girl doing something along the lines of, "Oh, I'm always here with whatever her name is, and we hang out all the time, and she's so cool," and the way that that's put together, yes, it's obvious that they're setting her up to be some way suspicious. I just didn't think that things would evolve in quite the way that it did do, because then whatever her name is, the person she's hanging around with gets kind of moody and miserable at the fact that Midnight, or the person Midnight is pretending to be, is stealing her thunder, and now everyone thinks she's super cool and amazing and great when they should think that she is, and not this new slag that's just come on the scene. Oh, you think she's so cool and great? Well, I'm just going to drink more and more. But then she drinks so much she ends up getting sick, and then she has a bit of a breakdown. Oh, who could ever like me? Who could ever like the person that's vomiting in public? Oh. And Crawler tries to be the nice guy and says, "Oh no, I don't think that. I think you're neat." And that immediately then cuts to Popstack looking like she's having a heart attack crossed with a stroke, because it looks like, oh shit, I've just missed my chance. And then you get that cut shot to the mop top looking lady looking fucking furious. She steals the towel, runs into the bathroom, and everyone thinks, oh, she's just doing it to dispose the evidence because they've stolen this towel to wipe up all the vomit and stuff, and oh, she's just gonna like flush it down the chain or wash it off or whatever. But no, she locks herself in a cubicle and seemingly starts to eat this vomit-covered towel. And just fucking hell, that escalated quickly. Good lord! Like, on the one hand, I really have to credit this series, because when it wants to get creepy and weird and gross, it does it in such a way that is just so disarming and just so sudden. It has a hell of an impact with it. Like the episode where the bees came out of the woman's, you know, and the whole thing about Knuckle Duster ripping the bee parasite out of his daughter's eye socket. Like, all this stuff, creepy, weird, nasty, and they doing it again. They did it again. Jesus Christ. But still, for what feels, like I said, towards the start of this review, this feels like it's supposed to be some kind of like little like palate cleanser thing. Just something that's done towards the end of the volume as a quick little wrap up and a quick little bit of, you know, action and fun and adventure, as much as this currently is action, fun and adventure. But then pivot so hard into something so just disarmingly unpleasant, yeah, I have to give credit to. God only knows how they deal with this in the form of if this ever gets an anime or an OVA or a movie or anything, but hey ho, congratulations there, you really fucking knocked it out the park there with just how creepy you're being with this particular volume, good lord. Well, that said, however, let us get into the negatives, and there's only two negatives that I have. The first of all is the fact that I feel that the timeline of events here isn't really clear. Throughout the course of this episode, we're constantly bouncing from stuff that's happening in the past to stuff that's happening in the immediate past to stuff that's happening a little bit further into the past. We're just constantly bouncing back and forth between present, slightly into the future, slightly into the past, so that we get context for everything that's going on here, how all the characters got into their current situation. Fine, fantastic, good. Works well, can't really criticise it for what it is in that regard. However, the issue that I have is that oftentimes it's not clear as to which parts we're seeing are flashbacks and which parts of them are stuff that's happening in the present day. And that makes the whole sequence of events really kind of hard to track for the most part. To be fair though, there are little inserts here and there that just says, oh, a few hours ago, or here and there, but it isn't really frequent enough. So there are moments of it just feels as though, on the one hand, I'm learning stuff that I already knew, but on the other hand, it feels as though I'm getting information just way out of order. In almost a way that it feels like, oh crap, we didn't set this up ahead of time, so let's have a scene with Eraserhead just explaining what's going on here, even though it's pretty much obvious from what we see here. And the other issue that I have is the fact that Popstep's disguise isn't distinct enough. You know, in this episode, she disguises herself as just somebody else because she has a fairly distinct look to her, so she just gets a fairly generic, straight black wig to put on. Okay, that's fine, that's good, but the problem is that the girl that gets pissy and then vomits all over the place also has straight black hair, and there was a part of me that was confused as to who it was that was going through all this breakdown moment of, oh, they think they're so cool and that, and then that made me wonder as to who it was that was being sick and that. So it made me wonder as to, oh, is this the moment where Crawler will inadvertently make a move on Popstep without knowing it's her, and how's that going to evolve? And it's kind of clear that that isn't what's happening, and that isn't the case. Like, they didn't need to do anything too specific, and again, maybe if this is done in an animated form, they'd do something that makes it a little bit more distinct, but they're just fairly similar, just way too similar to me. And especially bearing in mind that for the most part you just see the headshots line of them, so you don't see the clothes that they're wearing, so, which another thing would have signified who's different, but hey ho diddly do. We move into the overview and say that I like this episode quite a lot. It has a great humour and warmth and energy to it, which I really do dig. I do think that it has a it works. I mean, I hate to say it, but it just works. It's enjoyable for what it is, and it is setting up for a potentially interesting new mini storyline, but I fear that much like the stuff that we got with the convention in the previous volume, it's ultimately not really going to go anywhere. And just the whole thing of, oh, they're distributing these drugs via students having drinks together, that feels a tad tenuous for my liking. But again, this might be different culture. Like in the UK, all this kind of stuff happening, just, it would be so broad, you'd never be able to track this down. But hey, let's see where all this pans out. With all that said and done, however, let's get into Comment Corner! It's time for Comment Corner, and once more, it's time for a comment from Big X1, who says, and this is of course referring to last week's episode, I like this one a lot, but I wish the ultimate move was more of an ultimate move. Maybe it should have been towards the end of the episode. Thank you for your comment, and I have to say that, respectfully, I do disagree. I think that the whole way that the ultimate move from the previous episode was handled was done in the way I think was just best for the tone and just where Crawler is with his life. We have to remember that in the grand scheme of things, we're still very early into this series. This is only volume 6 out of about 52, I think. Granted, they didn't really know this at the time, but still, it's still very early on into his adventure. And as I mentioned in that earlier review, I still think at some point or another we're going to see him pull off this ultimate move. It might well be in the next episode. I've not had a chance to read it yet, but between then and now, I'll just say thank you all for watching, thank you all for listening. At some point over the next few days, I'm going to be doing the Christmas video. I'm going to be recording that, so we'll soon see where all that goes. But between then and now, I'll just say thank you all for listening, thank you all for watching, and see you next time. Goodbye! Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, favourite, subscribe, click the bell, and do all the YouTubey stuff that YouTube wants you to do. Go on, it'll do me a power of good. Until next time, my friends, goodbye!